Continuing our series of lectures on argumentation for AP English language and composition, this is a review of the text, Adversity, 2009 AP Lang prompt FRQ. Here we go. Here's the prompt. Adversity has the effect of eliciting talents which in prosperous circumstances would have lain dormant. Now this quotation is given to us about adversity, and then you are asked to write an essay that either defends, challenges, or qualifies Horace's assertion about the role of adversity, be it financial, political, danger, misfortune, etc., meaning you have options to choose from, and how it plays a role in developing a person's character. Now, when they give you a prompt that has a quotation as its central focus, do not focus on the quotation. I know the quotation seems pivotal to the writing, but in fact is only there to spur the writing. So the quotation gives you the idea, right? But really that's not the task. The task is right here, and that is how does the role of adversity, how does adversity play a role in developing a person's character, right? So when they tell you defend, challenge, or qualify, these options, though they may not be in the language of today's prompts for AP Lang, they're still there in sentiment. So you want to take what the quotation says and then go against it, perhaps, right? You challenge. Or perhaps you think it's a good idea and you defend it, or you think it's a good idea, but you think that it's missing something or it needs to be qualified in some way. Whatever decision you make about your essay in response to the quotation, the only thing you have to keep in mind is don't bring up the quotation. The quotation is not the focus of your writing. The focus of your writing is your own idea about the role of adversity in a person's character. That's it. That's your goal. So when you look at a prompt like this, I want you to consider what exactly does adversity mean, right? We first begin with definitions, terminology. What does adversity mean? In what way? I mean, they give you options, right? Financial, political, danger, misfortune, whatever. But what exactly qualifies as adversity? That's the first question that you should ask yourself. If you cannot define adversity within the context of your own essay, then your essay will feel distracted, right? Unclear. But whenever you get a prompt that hints on a certain term, and a lot of them do, I want to say pretty much all of them do, you want to define that term in your own way. Because once you control the definition, you control the argument. So, again, how does adversity contribute to the development of someone's character? Here, character, are we assuming that this development is necessarily for the positive? Could it be for the negative? I think so. Doesn't have to be one or the other necessarily. It could the character be the development of character be um, I don't know, deleterious to the person? Maybe they lose hope. Maybe could that be implicit within adversity? I mean, Horace seems to think that adversity would elicit talents that would have not happened had it not been under those circumstances. Therefore, adversity is necessary for talents to 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 grow, to happen, I suppose. Maybe you can go in that direction, right? Whatever direction you decide to take when looking at the prompt, it's inconsequential. It just the only rule is it has to be your decision, your essay, right? What adversity is in the context of your essay, what you want to argue in the context of your essay, what is your argument? So again, don't focus on the quotation, focus on your arguments. Now, when considering the purpose of your own arguments, you have to evaluate which direction you want to go. I know I've talked about these before, but remember, what is it that your essay wants to do? Perhaps your essay wants to inquire into the role of adversity in people's characters development. For instance, when I think about adversity and development of character, I think about two people, and I think of a compare and contrast. I think of Christopher Reeve, best known for his role in Superman, his reappearing roles in Superman, and a Spanish poet who, by way of accident, underwent the same tragedy that Christopher Reeve did. So they were both quadriplegics, and they both spend the rest of their lives working for a cause. As some of you may know, Christopher Reeve dedicated his life, the rest of it anyway, to um, well, to people with his own condition, right? And he became a symbol of hope beyond the screen. This Spanish poet, Ramon is his first name, I forget his last name. He became famous in his own way for petitioning the Pope for a good portion of 20 years, uh, that he wanted to commit suicide, right? And he fought for the right of euthanasia, until he was successful, sometime later in his life. So maybe I would inquire into the role of adversity in developing these people's characters. Both underwent similar circumstances and both dedicated their lives to very different things. Maybe you want your essay to have a conviction of some sort. Maybe it has a passion. Maybe it's something you truly believe. Maybe your essay you want your essay to be more persuasive, though I don't know that that's necessarily the focus of this adversity prompt. I don't know that adversity calls for a persuasive response. Maybe you want a negotiation, meaning maybe it would work in this way, but it wouldn't work in this other circumstance. It depends on what you want your argument to do. So you have to consider the purpose of your own argument before you begin writing. Consider also the elements of the argument, right? What claims are you going to make? For what reasons do you believe those claims are valid? What evidence do you have to support those reasons? What warrant are you willing to provide? That is, the connection between the evidence and the claim, the thing that explains why the evidence does in fact prove the claim. And are you going to, if at all, address the opposition, the ATO? It's important to acknowledge the opposition, even if you don't present a counter argument, right? But I think in this essay in adversity, you would have to acknowledge the opposition. If your essay sounds like adversity is great, you go through things and then you grow, I think that's a little simplistic, and I think it overlooks the the very real and problematic elements within the argument that adversity can always lead to personal growth. Here are some examples of clear yet complex claims that you could provide in response to the prompt. So, if they would ask you about the role of adversity in developing a person's character, as this prompt is asking you to do, what should your response be? Your response, in terms of a claim, should not be something as simplistic as the repetition of the quotation, meaning, adversity is instrumental in developing someone's character. I mean, that's what Horace said. It's not necessarily wrong, but I don't think that you advance the argument that you are a good writer where you simply repeat what the prompt already gives you. So here are some variations, some different responses. Let's check them out. It should be recognized that one's response to constructive adversity, here Ethan is the one writing this, he modifies adversity by calling it constructive. Let's see what it means. Where one's attitude towards hardship reflects both external support and a foster growth mindset. So he's defined constructive adversity as one where attitude reflects external support and foster growth mindset, meaning this is a kind of adversity that is good because you have people to help you and you have a different mindset and approach to it. I suppose the mindset is you can do it, that sort of thing. Can reveal fruits of labor to the overwhelming overcoming of adversity's obstacles, resulting in the exclusive realization of unique ideologies and talents. Okay. However, since adversity, this is a different claim, is hardly self-chosen, it is externally imposed on when it does present itself as an unwieldy mound of clay. The willingness of a person to dirty their hands to shave the unformed clay ultimately sculpts the positive development of character. This one is not only, they're both very assertive, but I think you can tell the language is very different. This one is much more metaphoric, much more playful with the words. This one is very intent on being clear, on being definitive, on explaining itself thoroughly, right? And you can tell this one is actually only a portion of an entire sentence, and the portion that preceded it was much longer. Here's the last one. Many fictional stories build on this idea of developing character as a cause of enduring through some type of suffering, and although these tales may be fictional, they serve as an example to the reader that in difficult times one discovers attributes within themselves unknown if it weren't for such distress, proving that this idea of development through struggle doesn't stray far from reality. This one is interesting too because it doesn't just give you the claim, but it also gives you the reasons that they're going to talk about. It seems like they're going to use fictional stories as a jumping off point into the conversation of why adversity is good for the development of character. So it's always good when a claim also includes reasons because it tells the reader not only what you're going to talk about, but also how you're going to talk about it. So here are some essential points for strong reasons and evidence. Remember, we're evaluating claims and reasons and evidence and warrants and acknowledgments of the opposition. So here are some things that you got to keep in mind when it comes to having strong reasons and evidence. The stronger the example seems, the stronger your argument seems. So whatever example you're going to come up with, make it good, right? The better it is, the better you look. That's it. An insufficiently weighty example um, can be remedied by having several sub-related examples, right? So if you're talking about adversity, you don't have one big example of a person, but you have three separate examples of three different people whose quick snippets put together can make the same point, then I think that's okay too. The relevance of the connection between the example and the claim will impact the overall strength of the argument. Meaning, if you're talking about adversity, right, and you're saying that if we overcome adversity, I don't know, we grow as a human being, right? That's the overall claim you're making. All right. But the example you're giving me is about a person, not so much about adversity, but it's about them, uh, I don't know, going through something difficult in life. But the thing that they're going through may not seem as difficult to the rest of the people, right? There are some things that are inherently more valid when it comes to difficulty, right? So like you can't put two things on the same level that don't correlate. If, for example, if the example that you're using, the evidence you're using about this person's life and how they overcame adversity is something trivial, like let's say a school issue, right? As opposed to somebody undergoing captivity or war or surviving some sort of trauma. These are obviously more legitimately moments of adversity through which you can make the point that if you overcome adversity, uh, you grow as a human being, right? If the example doesn't fit, don't try to make it fit, right? If you only thought of one thing and it doesn't seem like it really goes, then maybe it doesn't go and you need to think of another one. The more specific the example, the stronger the argument. This is true. You don't want an argument that's an example or an evidence that sounds like the guy who made Walmart struggled and he failed so many times, but he kept at it and he succeeded. Adversity, no. You want the example to be specific. You want to make sure that the reader understands that the more you talk about the example, the more your argument is proven to the reader. So if your example is wrong, this is the last one, your claim will seem wrong and your argument will lose validity. Sometimes your claim can be right, even if the example provided is wrong, right? An incorrect example does not necessarily, or an incorrect explanation of the example does not necessarily invalidate the claim, but it doesn't support it either. So you have to be careful with that. Here are some body examples that I think are pretty useful. I'm going to talk about what they are, and I'm going to ask you to pause the video so that you can read it in its totality, but I'll just simply talk about what they are. So this is Andres's example. This is Ethan's example. All right. So for Andres's example is interesting because he uses two things that don't inherently go together. He uses a Japanese anime called Evangelion. I really hope I'm saying that right. Wherein these teenagers have to fight some alien force. That's the essence of it. But the way he describes the experience. It seems like there's a lot of hardship, and there's a lot of internal as well as external struggle. So he's using a fictional moment as a way of expounding on his larger claim, which is adversity has the ability to make or break a person and their spirit to keep living, providing the opportunity and building the edifice of resiliency. So adversity is important to develop resiliency. That's the basis of his claim. So what I find interesting about this body paragraph is the way he writes it. He's able to explain this fictional example in a way that is very professional and very mature. And after he explains it, he compounds that example with something real, right? With Elie Wiesel's own life and own experience through the Holocaust and surviving Auschwitz. So what I find incredibly interesting about this is how distinct these examples are, right? One is based on an anime, and the other one is real and horrific. And yet, I think that he's able to handle both with maturity and professionalism. And I think he makes the point that whether it is something fictional or something real, adversity is part of the human narrative, and if you're able to overcome it, there is growth, which is basically what he's trying to argue. So I think he does it well in this body paragraph. Check it out. This one in Ethan's body paragraph, he explains based on primarily around Barack Obama. So this one is interesting because while the other one had two examples, this one has one main example that I think is used as the tenets of the conversation. So I'll read a portion of it just so that you get the idea of what I mean. I ask you also to pause it so you can read it in its totality. So this is a lot of claims right at the beginning. Let's begin somewhere. Although some may argue that this rationale process is only hypothetical, the specific process of self-critiquing is renownedly apparent in Barack Obama's autobiography, Dreams from My Father, where he admits to having used both marijuana and cocaine, only to stop after hitting rock bottom and realizing how incredibly far he had strayed from his desired path of political academia. For such a notable figure as Barack Obama to reveal that he identified and corrected his mistakes when faced with a constructive adversity, the efficacy of constructive adversity in contributing to a positive development of individual character is greatly buttressed when considering that Obama is acknowledged in the public eye as having an exceptional character, having served two terms as a democratically elected president of the United States. By recognizing that individuals commonly attempt to correct their previous mistakes in an event of misfortune to avoid familiar circumstances in the future, it is evident that constructive adversity can contribute to a positive development of character to an extent not possible from prosperous situations, allowing individuals, so on and so forth. Now, what is it that works about this body paragraph? He's able to provide a lot of rhetoric for his example. What is something that he could have done more of? Expound on the example of Barack Obama, right? On the adversity that he encountered. And I think had you had this student or had this writer, for instance, expounded more on the example itself, on the adversity, I think they wouldn't have to lean so much on the rhetorical claims provided afterwards. But be, but the lack of this of specificity is I think strengthened by the rhetorical claims provided afterwards. Also, we never look at an essay in isolation. We always look at it in its totality. And what came before, it's a lot of explanation that carries it through. So we're looking at conclusion strategies as well. You want to consider how you want to end it. Uh, do you want a call to action? Do you want to offer a solution? Do you want to disprove an idea? Do you want to make a prediction? You have to consider how it is that your essay is going to, well, culminate its rhetoric, right? I think for adversity, probably making a prediction or offering a solution might be the better way to go. But you can choose whichever one you want. Here are some examples that I have. So I'll read the bottom one, Kevin's conclusion. Adversity is a key factor in realizing hidden talents in anyone by providing new perspectives, opportunities, and experiences. Oftentimes, adversity and experiences that come with it are formative parts of the lives of many great individuals and provokes the question, can a person really maximize their potential without adversity? It's interesting. I think ending with a question, a rhetorical question, is often a useful technique, and it might be something that you could use. Here's a Matthew's example. So I think I'm gonna fast forward through the first portion and begin here. Be it a middle-aged man dressed like a bat in tights, or a cursed demon child searching to be the best ninja in the village. Enduring adversity comes in all shapes and sizes, but even the average individual can make something good out of a horrible situation and develop in who they wish to be through it. So this one you wouldn't fully understand unless you read the essay, but he talks about fictional characters, like Batman is one of them. I think you might have recognized that. And another one is another anime example. And what I find interesting about this conclusion is that it harkens back to the body paragraphs, as in, whether it's this or that, the point is this. And I think that construction of the argument works in a conclusion because it allows you to dismiss your own points almost and make yet another general point, one that is a little more philosophical, which is what you want in a conclusion. So, uh, before we go, the final tip that I want to give you is, as always, be the rhetorical writer. Be intentional about using strategies and devices. Consider what appeals are you going to use. Are you going to use maybe not your own ethos, but defer to somebody else's ethos? Are you going to use any emotional appeals on your audience? Are there any logical examples or facts that you might have handy in order to prove your argument? How are you going to show awareness of the device that you're using? And what I mean is, you don't necessarily have to use, for instance, an irony, right? But you could show awareness of an ironic moment, because in doing so, you demonstrate to your reader that you're able to, well, you're like the rhetorical writer. So, um, what kind of metaphors are you going to use? Are you going to use analogies? Probably allusions to historical figures. How is your word choice? Adversity is hardly self-associated, it is externally imposed on when it does present itself as an unwieldy mound of clay. The willingness of a person to dirty their hands to shape the unformed clay ultimately sculpts the positive development of character. There it is. I think the language or the word choice of um, mound of clay, dirty their hands, shape the unformed clay, sculpting the positive. The word choice here is well, it's very interesting, and I think that's something you want to consider at the end. How are your words throughout? Are they connected in any way thematically? Maybe. How is your tone? Do you shift it? Are you monotone? Do you go up and down in your tone? Right? Are you willing to reason at the beginning and then you're more assertive at the end? Think about it. How are you going to write it? Your syntax. How are you constructing your sentences? Are they all long? Are they all short? Is there a variety in the sentences? Do you begin every sentence with subject and then predicate? Is that the way you begin every single one of them? Can you write a fragment from time to time? Careful with fallacies. This happen a lot. These are the most common too. There are times that, well, you're making an argument and then you go astray, and you make a mistake, and that's what these are. Be careful with those. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.